Decorating Pages podcast presents Production Design Film Study. This class examines Oscar-nominated films spanning a century of cinema. Accomplished professionals in production design will explore and dissect the sets featured in these nominated films and will educate why they were recognized for the design of their time. This class features the films of 1980, and this year's films will be reviewed by Kim Wanup, set decorator, and Raf Lydon, production designer, art director.
But let's start about the nominated films that for that year were Coal Miner's Daughter, The Elephant Man, Kagmusisha. Do you think that's right?
Kagmusisha, yeah, I think it is.
Kagmusisha, yeah. And then Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, and Tess.
Yes.
So they really well-rounded, I feel like, this year.
Yes. There's like a little bit of everything in there.
Yeah. And it's great to show the versatility of like what was going on in that year, also of like more sci-fi stuff and then periods. But I guess four of them are periods actually.
Well, they're all period, really.
Yeah.
Except for Empire Strikes Back is obviously a sci-fi movie, but you know, the other ones are all set in. Well, Coal Miner's Daughter is like late 1940s through the early 70s.
Right.
So there's no contemporary movies here.
Right. Which I thought was interesting.
Which is very interesting, yeah. So because, you know, when we talked about other things, there was contemporary movies in there last time. So this is, it's
Why did
quite
you select this year? Let me ask you that.
I selected this year because of what you said. It was a very interesting, like, mix-up. And I like the fact that The Elephant Man was in there as a black and white movie in 1980.
Yeah.
You know, it's been probably, at that point in 1980, it's got to been at least, 2 decades or so since it was a black and white movie. You know, by the 60s, black and white was completely on the way out. By the end of the 60s, it was all color. So just to have a black and white movie in there, and I feel it works better because it's black and white.
Yes,
but we can talk about that more when we get to the movie itself.
Absolutely, yeah, and just like the culture of each of these films is dramatically different. I also really like
absolutely.
that.
Yeah, and they all have such a different vibe, and they just reflect a different story, each one of them, and they're all told well, and they're all visually told well, I think.
Yeah, it was a good year, good pick.
Yeah, it was good. So,
Coal Miner's Daughter, production designer John Corso and set decorator John M. Dwyer, who John Dwyer got the SDSA Lifetime Achievement Award about 10 years ago. And I remember seeing Coal Miner's Daughter on his like bio thing, and I was like, oh my God, that guy did that? Like, you get like in awe about like this little tiniest little thing.
Right. Right.
But he also did Jaws, and he did a lot of Star Trek. So
yes, he had a very wide range of stuff he did.
Yeah. And John Caruso went on to be like John Hughes's guy and did all of those great 80s films, like unbelievable.
Yes. Yeah. It was absolutely. Do you want to talk about the plot first, or do you?
I was gonna read the little. I have a little blurb if I could find it. Here it is. The fictionalized life of singer Loretta Lynn, a girl who rose from humble beginnings to becoming a country music star in the 60s and 70s. It's, I guess, reading into it, it's like she was very involved with this movie, even helping to cast Sissy Spacek. She really wanted her to play her. And the biggest thing about the film is like she's 13 with a 22-year-old. And then they find, in the last decade or so, they found her birth certificate, but she was really 16 or something. So
Oh, okay. They didn't know.
that was
She.
that's what I looked into. That part.
Okay. Well, still
Yeah.
16, 30. Yeah.
Really great
Okay.
depiction of like small town life and
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the poor families. It was shot in Virginia.
Right.
Um, I love seeing, there's a whole montage of coal miners and everything that I thought was fascinating research for those
Right.
that occupation. And then you had brought up this point of
So
yeah, go ahead.
his red truck. Yeah. So I thought at the very beginning, the contrast between the fact that when she's introduced, like she's wearing that red jacket as well, which is kind of symbolic.
Right.
But it's a great thing where she's like, here on the horse, and it's poor, and it's, whatever, and it's just very hard life. And then he comes by with this flash red,
Yeah.
and it's just like it's a pop of life around the rest of the whole thing. They're in the mining station, and
Super
it's all
dreary. Yeah.
very dreary. All the colors are all very earthy tones. Everybody's dirty, and he's there in that uniform, and he's all clean, and he's like, I bet you guys I can get up that hill.
Yeah.
It's like he was like
Yeah.
symbolic of, I am getting the hell out of here, and she could see that about him.
Yeah.
And it was just like I found it very visually interesting that if you were watching this and the audio wasn't there, you kind of figure out that this guy was the guy that was going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
When the rest were all just like covered in dirt, and it's all very like muted colors, and it's overcast and gray, and it's just this fireball of red. I thought visually it was a really good move to have him in that red.
And that's a production designer, and that's a transpo director. That's a decision made by the overall design team of a film.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's it's such a great visual thing to put that as a design element in there.
Yeah.
To kind of symbolize all that. So I thought that was a great point, that this was a starting point, and it was going to transform, and the film transforms like visually and color wise as it goes on, beyond this point as they move. But I want to talk about this, about we're looking at her shack and her house and all that, and how rural it all is.
Yeah, it's like coming up there's no road. There's no road to their
no
house.
Road, and like they're digging coal out of the side of a hill,
Yeah.
And she's saying she's in love with this guy, to her father, and all that stuff. And it's just what I like about this is that as a design, there's so much great location design work in this movie.
Yes.
Like all these exterior shots, like all the cabins they built, and just the detail with like all the logs, and this interiors as well.
Like, what's that bucket for hanging? Or like, look at the saws hanging. Like, there's a and like they still have lanterns hanging. Like they might not have electricity at some point, or
exactly. And it's all they're going to an outhouse. It's just it's just like visually. It's this is an interesting time as well, because in the 1970s. Film stock, they invented higher speed film. Right. So it was easier to shoot all this stuff on location and make it look really good.
Yeah.
I mean, they did have it in the 60s, and you can watch like, Easy Rider and all that stuff. But this is more, you get more bang for your buck, because by the 70s, the film stock quality was so much better, the detail and everything. You can see so much more, and then you can use it in low lighting, and so that, like, this movie is a great example of locations.
Yeah, because they didn't build all this. In fact, this set that was used for this house was reassembled in Hurricane Mills, which is Loretta Lynn's current house, and is on her ranch tour. So they liked the set so much that she put it up at her house.
Nice.
Yeah. which it's
That's
so sweet, really.
yes.
And it's poor, but not too sad. Like I read something. Sissy Spacek praised the production designer and his design team for the degree of authenticity they lent to the story without falling into a cliche like portraying hillbillies in squalor.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. And they're not
they were
all
working poor family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like their house, if you look at it, it looks like, it's fallen apart and like the wallpaper's peeling and everything, but it's still their home and they have all this detail in there and it's dressed really well
Yeah.
to show the characters. And like that shot there we're looking at of her looking in the mirror, but you can see the ceiling is just crumbling above her.
Yeah, well, it's newspapers. There's a thing I didn't really catch it, and then I read that they use newspapers as wallpaper. Which
That's right. Yes,
Loretta Lynn's family had really done, and so
Right.
it's wallpaper. And there's another scene. Oh, I made that bigger. Yeah, look at it. Like the wallpaper's peeling off.
peeling
There's
off
the crochet.
But
blanket.
it's still got like it's still like a family home, but it's
Yeah.
all kind of like they're living it. It's really well lived in, and it looks like they've lived there for a long time, but someone else lived there a long time before
Yeah.
that. It's got a real feel that this house has been there a while, and it's they're in here now, and it's got a lot of character, and it's poor, but and it's falling apart, but they're making it their home.
Yeah.
It absolutely feels.
And in dressing sometimes, like it's pulling back things like that hooks over there. It doesn't have anything on it, and that's fine, and that means something. And there's always this like control thing of like you put a picture there, or put something on there, or do this, and like
you need more. Put 4 pictures there.
I only want one. I only want one scarf, like, or I only So it's great. I love seeing blank walls and everything. But look at the newspaper and
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the newspaper is so prominent.
The ceiling is falling apart, and it's a great amount of detail in their house.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then as we move on, and even in these locations, like this looks like a location. Where she
it's like a little town hall.
Yeah, town hall, and again, it's kind of like it's got a kind of a mutity colored feel to it, but it's lived in as well, and there's character to it. There's a lot of character in the detail, all the stuff like with the kids.
Art.
Yeah, and all that. But it's a very basic, fallen apart building.
Yeah.
And it just feels like really well thought out.
Yeah.
And again, with the lighting, it looks like they lit it very kind of. There's a little bit of light, but it looks like they lit with like overhead practicals as well.
Yeah.
And,
I should say most of the pictures on these presentations are me like screen capturing as I'm watching them.
Okay, right.
in some of the films that don't have as many shots online with sets in them, so
right.
There is a contrast. Like what it really is the bottom picture, which you're talking about, which is a very low light. Yeah. I don't, it's more realistic. It's more overall done and everything. It really lends to their little environment.
Yeah, yeah. And then it's interesting because there's clearly, as they transition, it starts changing and the spaces get bigger.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about as we get there. But this is great.
This was fantastic. They get married. They go to this is their wedding night suite.
Yeah.
How and why these walls are that green, and then this fantastic patterned curtains against it is so fantastic. And her in her little red jacket is like, it's incredible to me that green exists in this film.
I know, and it's another kind of symbol of, I don't know, the kind of earthiness of where they are. Like it's still in that Kentucky environment. So it's got the bedspreads of brown and the green thing walls, and the place is falling apart.
Yeah,
Like it's
it's a
really
piece of shit.
sleazy. But it's just fantastically, looks so like, oh my God, this is going to be like their wedding night,
Yeah.
and it's just such a, this is poor, and this is, but it's still, this room is a kind of a step up from where she used to live.
It is. It's the Ritz, really.
Yeah, exactly. Compared to what? Yeah, exactly. This environment.
And then then they get a house. He moves her away. They get a house.
Yes.
Now, what was fantastic to me is such the amount of details in these sets. Like the shelves are falling apart, like on the left, and like the wallpaper is, I think they went in and put that wallpaper in there. But I will tell you, I really struggle with when you have to do a environment like this, and they're like, oh, there's weird pictures here and there. To put pictures weirdly in a place is hard.
It is, because your natural tendency is to go in and do it. It should be straight. It should be this.
It should be straight, or there should be a group of 3, or this, or that, or like, oh, that one's askew, and then this one's perfect. Like it's hard to do, to make it look authentic.
Yeah, totally.
And not just a crazy person.
And to kind of convey the character of that place and the family who lived there, to just, who put those up? The kids put them up?
Yeah.
Did the mom put them on the wall like that? It's interesting. And they use, like, what's great about the dressing as well, and everything looks like it's not a luxury. It's like a very kind of used. Everything's used, and it's practical, and they're using every jar there. There's like 50 jars there. Everything is put in there because that's all they have. So there's no luxury in anything.
And the plunger on the floor.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like so perfect.
Bucket of coal, and it's just Yeah.
And then
it's so good.
And aging is so important. Of like, by the handles, the door, and the switch plates, and where you touch the door. And this guy's miserable. Look, he's miserable. He got out of town, and he just went to another town, like, to be miserable. Like
exactly. And he's like, I don't want to be a coal miner, and and he's like, got her out, and he's like, you're the one who's going to make it. You can sing, you got this, you got the guitar, you got this, And this is interesting because this is like when they've gone to Seattle. So it's like the palette even changes color-wise.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It's a different house. It's a different house from the previous slides. It's
exactly
like years later, 5-6 years later. Now they got 5 kids.
They got 4 kids, and she's like, what, 17 now?
Yeah, no, she's 17. I didn't mean to cut her guitar off. I'm bummed I did that. But again, the use of a car to show, like, they got an old clunker, but they got a car.
Yeah, and it's a transition as well, where he was like Mr. Speedy around, going around with his Jeep and his red Jeep and everything. And now it's transitioned into a different color, and it's more practical, and they've got kids. And, there's still like a environment, like it feels kind of like what we've seen before, but now it's more.
This is nice. The curtains are nice. And they have some nice pots. They got plates that match. That also cued me, because before there was a mismatch, and now they've got like patterns and things. And
and the curtains, everything is nicer. It's like the walls don't have any. It's not falling apart anymore.
Right.
And this is kind of transitioning towards it's going to be more of the color is coming into the world.
Yeah.
As she as a character is starting to come out of herself more. It feels like their whole world is starting to shift in a different direction visually.
Yeah.
And here again with the kids and stuff, like they have a brighter bed covers and the tables, everything just feels like it's like moving in a direction.
But two kids to the bed, though. 2 kids in a bed.
Two kids to a bed. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. But I suppose as opposed to 4 kids to a bed, I suppose.
Yeah, true. Oh, I put that picture in again. But, I mean, this is one thing that caught me is they did a wet down.
Right,
but,
I can see that.
But you can see, like, they didn't do it under the basket or under her chairs or whatever.
They probably just wet it down and then said, lock it up, roll camera. Yeah.
That was my only thing I think I caught of like, oh, look at that.
Yeah.
It's a bad one. But even outside dressing, like doing the porch, there's people logs, a lot of times people who are poor at this level still have a lot of shit. They still have a lot of going on. Like, you know, you save things or, you know, you acquire things or they're just older versions of what should be there.
Right. But the dressing is all like, it's all practical still in the sense there's no luxury stuff. Like she's sitting there beside
that
laundry, their washing machine, you know, and it's going to be like, you know, a hellish day of washing with that thing because it's all hand cranked. And then I like as well that there's like, you know, logs of wood. We've gone from seeing, you know, buckets of coal to logs and stuff outside now. And, it feels like there's more green as well here because we're obviously in Seattle when he's working as in the logging business now. But it's definitely it's a great transitional feeling.
Yeah.
You know, everything feels a little more up and color-wise it's getting to a different palette and we're going in a certain direction.
Oddly enough, I did keep waiting for him to beat her. But
yeah, there was always that moment. There was always that kind of thing. I thought this was going to end like, you know.
Yeah, I thought it was going to end badly for somebody. But it's actually a very sweet story. It's a very, I mean, I don't know how much of it's true. I have no idea. But it's a very, he believes in her so much. And they're taking the kids to these recording studios and using the sleeping bags. And the quilts on the walls of these like local recording studios is just fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah. It's got such a good, you know, visual feel, and it tells a story, and it's practical. It's like, you know, this is not like a high end. This is not RCA. It's not Capitol Records. She's in a small little place, and it's kind of another transitional thing, and it's showing all these like elements where this place is just like a makeshift garage / studio that some guy
or even like taking pictures.
Yeah, that was great. I love that scene where they were taking her pictures for her record.
I love
cover,
it.
and it's
using the pot
just
thing.
there with the, you know, and here, put the bed sheet back on the bed. We're done. You know, it's just like,
and using the pot cover as like a reflective, and
and they're using the lamp, like the practical, to light it, and it's even like the way it's lit. You can see the shadow behind her. It's like it's like he's just kind of figuring this out because he believes in the opportunity. You know, he's definitely, they're a good combination because he's clearly the guy who can figure out like, okay, I'm going to do, how do we get a record deal? How do we do an album cover? How do we do this stuff where, you know, she's like, I'm the creative one. I can play the songs. I can sing.
Yeah. And she's ballsy. She's ballsy in it too.
Absolutely. And it's interesting as well, like where in an earlier scene where she's like the first time she performs on stage and she's like got stage fright and all that, and they encourage her, and then she really comes out of herself. And by the time she's at the radio station, she's changed as a character as well.
Yeah,
she's very much like, wait, you haven't even opened up my record. You're telling me it was crap and no one wanted to listen to it. It's still in the envelope I mailed to you, you know, and then they put it on, you know, it was great. The little
record stations were great too. I have to think that those were locations.
Yeah, it did feel like,
I don't know if I have that.
A lot of this movie was location based.
Yeah.
But it's really great because they're dressed so well. So that's, I always feel like when I go into a location, it's like the set decorator's got to save us here. Yeah. Because it's all about the dressing. Like, I'm not building any walls.
Yeah, the walls are perfect. We found a great location. Now we just have to dress in the characters and the story.
Yeah, it has to be conveyed through the dressing 100% for this location.
And I love this car dressing. I love her. Like, they're living in the car. They're going to radio stations. Her dress that she wears to like every little interview, just hanging
which
there.
she has on in the album cover. You know,
it's so great.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well. Like it's, you know, her clothes are changing as well. Obviously, you know, she's getting more pops of red. She had the red coat at the beginning, but it's funny because he's like getting less of the red, and her visual look is getting more red elements and stuff, you know, as well. I felt it was kind of like, as they were on the road and everything, it seemed like her color palette was moving more into brighter colors, and his was kind of like shifting. Yeah. You know, when they started off, it was kind of like he's got his red Jeep and I'm going to get us out of here and all that. And now that she's the star, he at one point when he had to work more and his dreams are crushed, whatever, you know, she's now the star, and he's kind of like, okay, I get it. I'm the guy who's behind the star kind of thing.
Which I found incredibly a great plot point, in a sense of like, oh, he's not just going to turn into like this alcoholic asshole.
Right.
He actually feels like, no, you know what? I got to step back. I got to go do me, and I'll still support you and everything, but I'm totally happy, you know, going to work and doing my thing because you're the star here. And he was, you know, he was getting jealous. And
because I was assuming it was going to go that way with the movie as well. I hadn't seen this movie in a long time, so I'd forgotten how it had gone. But it's great. And now, like, here she is at the Grand Ole Opry, and that was interesting because I felt also this was kind of like more, you know, her, like before, earlier on, it was kind of like the more kind of very small, but as her shots and stuff, but as it went on, it seems like to open up, we see more. She's in a bigger world, and we're seeing more of her, and she's in wider shots, and we see more of the sets and stuff as well from earlier.
Now, I know they shot the exterior of the Opry. I feel like this is the Opry.
Yeah, I feel it is.
I think it is.
Or it's definitely a location anyway.
But because then they go to that background that you always see, which is like the red. I don't know if I have that. The red barn sort of door background kind of the Grand Ole Opry. So, but I also love like the older signage, the older fonts, like all of this, like the below picture is her like basically in a record store playing.
Right.
Which is fantastic. A little record store also.
Absolutely, yeah. And like those signs are all like, you know, they look like they're hand painted as well. And it's very, you know, this is probably the 50s, late 50s, early 60s at this point in the storyline.
Yeah, I think so.
And, you know, the signage looks great. It's very well thought out. It looks like the stuff from that time period.
Yeah.
And, it's you know, it's simple dressing as well, but it's very effective.
Yeah.
And everything works really well visually, I feel.
Now, the Patsy Cline, she really gets the color and like...
Yes.
It's not opulent. It's just pieces that are so effective.
Your eye goes to them.
Because this is basically a white room. It's not wallpapered. It's not a big round room or whatever. Like when I think of Patsy Cline, I think of Sweet Dreams. And I've seen that movie probably like 20 times. And I felt this is a very poor version of Patsy Cline. But they did try to give her like the pink back there and the red glass and then the yellow glass lamps and just to show the frilliness that that she had in her life and maybe that Loretta, you know, could get into eventually, which she does. Kind of with the clothing.
Which she does after Patsy dies as well.
Yeah.
And, sorry if Anybody watching or listening. Plot point.
Yeah. Spoiler. Patsy Cline dies in like 1959.
Uh, yeah, exactly. But yeah, this is great because this is like the transition as well, and she's going to transition into a different color palette as well, her world.
Yeah.
So it's a clear influence, and all the Patsy Cline stuff, and she's the even her, I think her hospital room, there's like tons of flowers in it as well.
Yeah. It's like a very muted green, I think, hospital room that they put her in when you first see Patsy. But yeah. And I think too, like you're calling it like the red pillows is another sense, because then they start showing like Loretta like picking up speed and getting popular, and then the dresses and the hair all change, and the stage design is, it's her own show now.
Yeah, and this is probably early 70s, late 60s, early 70s at this point.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's definitely, like completely different from the start of the movie at this point. It's, I feel what I always find like a good thing about if you can watch a good visual, a good design thing in a film is if you have no audio and or you can't speak the language, and you just watch this movie from start to finish, and you can just visually see what's happening to these people. And their colors and their, the design and the authenticity of the costumes for the time period and all that. You can tell there's a transition in time from the 40s to the 70s. Yeah. It's all done so well. It's always, if you turn off your audio and just this, and you're like, I can still kind of know what's happening just visually.
Well, you're in the 70s in this room.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, this is like unbelievable. So this is like their house once they get rich. This is their bedroom.
Yes.
And that is that like a silk or like a satin wallpaper? You know how they used to have that like.
It feels like it's maybe like a silk or it's so like. It is of that time period. If you go to Graceland, have you been to Graceland?
No, but I've seen Elvis.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, when you go to Graceland, like, and it's a time capsule, and when I looked at this, I thought of like I just had remembered when I went to Graceland like several years ago, and it's got that. There's kind of that opulent, kind of like over the top, slightly gaudiness of the early 70s, and it's it's dressed by. It's a musician has said, I want this wallpaper, or I want this. An entertainer has, and this reflects that this is like, her, what she wanted in the room, or, she's obviously.
Those pink dolls, like that's on top of the shelf in the bathroom, and then on top of the fireplace, and then on the bottom of the fire, like the dolls around are so creepy.
I know.
I don't get, but I know it was like a 70s thing. I actually think that they're like toilet paper holders or something, to be quite honest. I remember
and
that.
It's very, like, it feels like that. There's always like a lot of like little characters or little like knights or something holding a...
Yeah. But there, I put an insert because there's another scene of him in the bathroom, and those towels are so fantastic. They're so fantastic. I love it. It's amazing.
Fantastic. The detail is great. It's just, and the whole thing, like the swishes in the fabric and above their bed and everything, it's just like royalty compared to like where she was in the room with the newspaper on the walls when she was a kid or a teenager at the very start of the movie. It's just like such a great transition.
And then this, I don't know. I mean, I know that door is like glossy.
Right.
It's glossy. I know the reflection of that is like my wall with pictures on it, but that door is like glossy into like their little family room. It's so weird. Like, I don't know what these. I'm like, was that a thing? Like this glossy door?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that could have been a design conversation. That could have been more for, it could have been, let's paint it in a semi-gloss or something, or eggshell, just to give it a little bit more pop, just because we're in a different place and it's not the beginning of the movie where it's more muted,
Yeah. And then
that could be, and it give them more life, because they're obviously like they're they're lighting a lot of this naturally, but there's probably overhead lights on this one. But there is practicals as well. But it does feel like, it warms up everything. I think with the glossiness a little bit.
Well, the drapery is great. Those pictures, because those are old string pictures, like that carriage. I think it's all string, and then the kids on the ground, and then there's some, they've been coloring, and a fabulous amount of detail.
And the red carpet,
red.
Yeah.
Well,
it's another.
That was kind of it for that one. I loved it.
There's another example of the red, like they use the red, like it's as a language as well. It's like every time you see red in this movie, it's some kind of like very bold visual thing, like the red floor or whatever. It's always used, like it's not subtle at all.
I mean, I should have put a picture in of the tour bus, because that's always fun. I thought I had one, but the story goes on. I mean, she gets tired, she gets worn out. She's got, I think it was sleeping pills she's on, but then she cleans it up and she's back in, and she's, on top, and it seemed like a pretty happy marriage that they had. So
yeah, and it was a nice transition as well. For you saw at the beginning of the movie, like she's on the horse on the side of the hill, and it ends kind of like on the side of the hill, but he's building her the house.
Yeah.
So it was a nice kind of transition as well. The whole storyline was good.
I loved it. I mean, I think
definitely liked this movie.
I think production design wise, it's worthy of being acknowledged. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great visual journey. Just, great use of locations, great set dressing.
Yeah.
Like set dressing, like I said, in a location, as you well know, will always save the,
Yeah.
So it's great.
Yeah, that was a good one. And then you have the Elephant Man.
Switch.
So, yeah. The Elephant Man is production designer Stuart Craig and Robert Cartwright, and set decorator Hugh Scaffey. A Victorian surgeon rescues a heavily disfigured man who is mistreated while scraping a living as, oh no, I don't know what that says. Well, he goes to a freak show and he finds this man who's heavily disfigured. So he has, and this is a true story, ish. But behind the facade of this disfigurement is a real person, as he says, who's highly intelligent, and he's kind and sophisticated, and it's a really sad story. It's not. It's just. It's beautifully done. My God, the shots in this film are unbelievable.
Absolutely. I've seen this movie many, many times.
Oh,
I haven't seen it recently, but it just stands out. It's just like, so David Lynch directed this movie.
Yes.
This is his first big movie. He did Eraserhead before this.
Right.
And Mel Brooks, of all people, is the producer of this movie.
Yeah.
Saw Eraserhead and went, that guy should direct this movie. And it's just got such a strong visual language and a feel to it. It really stands out.
I had so many screen grabs of this film, and found so many great screen grabs of this film, that I hope this doesn't turn into like watching the film. But in the beginning, I mean, the fantastic where they just kind of throw you into this dirty London.
And the use of weird, creepy mechanical things with the steam coming out of everything, and the sounds and everything. It's very nightmare feeling. Like it's a world that's very dreamlike or nightmare feeling. It's just like, it's not like, it's not a world you'd willingly step into. You know, you go in there and it's like, oh, everything is just so like the poor are poor. There's like all
Yeah.
these machines and
I hate this period. I hate it. I hate like anything medical this period. That show The Nick was like a nightmare for me to watch, but I liked it. I hate that they experimented so much like on weird shit. Like it freaks me out. It freaks me
Right.
out at all times.
I know this was a like totally transition in medical history and
Yeah.
everything. And you know, it's just like it's so what I like about this, even like all these shots, like David Lynch is clear, you know, he was an art director before he became David Lynch and started directing. So he's got a very strong idea, like visually, of what he wants and stuff.
And I mean, Stuart Craig goes on to do like Harry Potter and like just a phenomenal career.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of his early movies, but it's phenomenally, I think this is great production design as well. Like it's just a really good thought out movie. The look of it is very unique. It's all, you know, it's got to be a challenge when you're told, yeah, you got the job, but it's going to be shot in black and white.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So, you know, and everything's going to look gritty and it's going to be dark and shadowy but you know, the design of it looks so good. Like all the elements, the hand painted signs, everything. It's just such a great movie. I feel when I watch this movie, I think of the 1930s, like the Universal Studios movies, you know, like the Frankensteins and the Draculas, and I think of that, and it feels like this movie nearly feels like it could have been in that category. Like it feels like it's got those kind of elements where, you know, just the way it just feels and the look of it, and you know, Todd Browning's movie Freaks from 1930. Like it's got all that, like, you know, the design is pulling from that. David Lynch is pulling from that. It's got that all like that feeling overall.
But there is a montage in the beginning of this and later when he goes back to the freak show of all the freaks and everything, which is like so jumbled up and it's so dark that when I tried to take screenshots, it didn't really work out. It's like there's so much going on in those scenes and they're very dimly lit. And because it's not something familiar, at least to me, I thought I got lost a lot. And thank goodness for the signage that they have. Or like I don't know what that guy, look, the wind. I don't know what that guy's doing. What is he doing? And why is that chick laying down? Like, I don't know what's going on.
What's their little freak thing? It's obvious, you know, pulling from something of that time period.
Yeah. I don't know.
And it's definitely like, you know, when they're in that whole world of the carnival stuff or any of that stuff, it just feels very, you know, nasty and everybody's like drunk and poor.
It's gross. It's so disturbing, really, that this, you know, this is real. And the shots actually of Anthony Hopkins walking down these like really dark alleys to get to the freak shows is scary too.
Yeah, it's very steamy and it's like, you're going into this world. Yeah, completely. And it's like when, you know, Anthony Hopkins is having conversations with the guy who's the proprietor of the Elephant Man.
Yeah, that guy with the top hat.
And it's like, you know, you understand me, we have a deal. And it's kind of like you're jumping into this world of exploitation as well by coming in here to see him or, you know.
Apparently, the real handler, the guy in that top hat who was being portrayed, wasn't that mean to him. And was kind of like a partner with him and gave him like half of everything or whatever. And didn't kidnap him as they do in the film. He didn't do that. So obviously Hollywood got in here and you know, twisted and turned it a little.
You need a villain.
Yeah,
You need a villain.
but yeah, and that's an easy villain of just taking advantage of this poor man.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
And it's interesting because the whole storyline is like, he does go then to a better life, but he's still kind of taken advantage of. But
yeah.
This is great because this, like, the contrast, in all these shots. Here we are at the hospital. Like, that floor is fantastic. That
floor is fantastic. I know it's blue because I took it. It's a screenshot, but it's fantastic. The pattern of that is, and that they took that shot of bringing him in.
They did that shot, like looking down of him, and it looks like, to me, they built that desk. It's just that small.
Yeah, that desk should not be that close to the stairs. It's weird.
Yeah, it's either someone messed up or it was a brilliant stroke of genius. That it's like, got that kind of tiny little.
It was also like, all the wards are upstairs, go upstairs, but they take him to the back.
Yeah,
they take him to the back entrance.
And this is just so great. It's simple looking, but it's effective because it's a black and white palette, and I like, just getting on the subject of black and white, just going slightly on a tandem. I interviewed production designer Bill Bonnard several years ago, and he did the Ed Sullivan Show.
Oh, wow.
And talked about, back in those days, it was all black and white. So you had to design to black and white, and your color palette had to reflect that. So again, this is good because it's not something that you got to really think about when you're designing for black and white.
Yeah.
Like, how they're going to look on a wall when the film is processed, and, you're looking at it in color. And you're thinking, okay, how is this going to look like in black and white? I can take a Polaroid of it, I guess, or whatever, back in 1980.
Well, I had talked to Jan Pascal, and when she did Good Night and Good Luck in black and white, she said, I was really lucky that the iPhone was around, because I would just go around and look through the black and white on my phone at patterns and colors and everything. And they made us up a like a swatch board of the wall colors and everything, so I could try to test it on my own when I was out shopping. But they didn't have that in 80,
No, I'm just thinking, someone's going around with a Polaroid camera taking shots.
Yeah.
And seeing how it looks. And
I love the simplicity of this. I love showing, like, everyone was in one room. It's like the intensive care unit today. It's not this anymore. And the gas lights, I mean, oh my God.
Gas lights, yeah. And that feels like it's, it gives a kind of, like when they light the gas lights and they turn them off, and it's all that kind of industrial thing. And, when Anthony Hopkins is talking about, he's doing like surgery on some guy who's had like some horrific accident. And it's like, these infernal machines and stuff. And then there's all those great shots of the machines working and the steam and all that.
Do you think this is a location? Because they're only in here these two times. Like, the Alpha Man isn't in it. It's
like, just looking at the architecture on the walls and everything, it just does feel like they dressed.
I think that's a location, right? And then when he's teaching, I think is a location.
His little where he's giving a speech, that room feels like a location. But I mean, this looks like this is great here, like just the whole light and shadow, and like how, like, the set dressing, all these blank walls basically with your gas lights and stuff on them, and then the detail of the dressing on the tables and everything is just so nice, and so
it's dense, but it's not overdone.
Not overdone, and it's kind of like his character in that sense.
Yeah,
he's very controlled, and it's like, Anthony Hopkins plays him like, he sheds a tear, or he gets angry, and he plays it very kind of quiet. Yeah, here's the scene where they were doing the surgery on the guy. It
freaks me out. It totally freaks me out. I hate it.
One guy's got the rope holding them.
I know. I don't even know what's going on. They've got tubes. I don't.
It's just like, it's very weird. That's why, I don't know. It just, like, what I like about this movie is it feels like it could be, oh, like from another time period. It does feel like one of these early like Universal movies or something as well. It's just got the whole look of it, or the weird,
the weirdness
and,
of it.
yeah. And David Lynch has done a great job on this, obviously, and Stuart Craig as well, and obviously it was awesome. I love this Mr. Khan's room.
As soon as Gielgud comes on, I'm full attention because I love his voice. I love his voice. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah,
but his office is fantastic too, and I wonder if this was a build or if this was a location. I don't know, but. It's certainly dressed to his character.
It feels like a lot of the hospital stuff is location stuff. I feel like the elephant's room,
those are builds, and that staircase, but maybe the elevator? Like the elevator, I don't know. I love the tile.
The tile is great. The expanded metal mesh, like wiring on the door going into the isolation area, it all feels great. And what's great about this, with being black and white as well, is there's a great contrast to give depth because of the fact that your wainscot and the tile and all that is all like very dark, and then the walls are very light, and it gives you a feeling of depth because of that. And the dado line, I was going to talk about the dado line that they run whole hospital. The fact that the dark and the light, the contrast, if those walls were not painted like that, it would be so flat and so dead.
You have to contrast the either dark on top or light on top or something that just helps break up the walls so much against people, against characters, against dressing.
Absolutely. And even in this scene with they have all the like the curtains going around the bed are all very dark against the white walls. It really, it's a good breakup. So there's a great use of breakup of light and dark in this.
They don't have it in there. See, they don't have it in there, but that room's pretty tiny. But even his office, they have it.
It's got that breakup as well, and he's got all that great stuff on the walls, all those paintings and stuff. And I was going to talk about that as well. I like all the little photos, the framed photos
in his room.
And in particular throughout, like when he goes to Anthony Hopkins's.
I have all that.
You got that later, or
I have that later. I just want to say, look how high up the gas light is in Elephant Man's, attic room here. I feel like that's unsafe. I feel like that should have come down a little or something. I don't know.
And I like the way it's kind of like they have the window down so low. It's
so
clearly. Great. Yeah, and the angles and everything in this little room is like so well. It's like you're in an attic, like you're in this tiny little space. It's really well designed. That it's compact and it shows the angles, and it's a very basic room, but the shape of it makes it tells the story of where you are, because if this was just like 4 straight walls or whatever, it's like, okay, well, where is he? And this feels like, he's up in the attic. He's definitely
the like window on the bottom is a tell.
Sure, yeah,
but he has a sink. Well, I don't know if he doesn't have running water. No, he's got a pitcher, but he's got a basin over there.
A basin, and again, it's a good use of contrast. All that dark wood furniture against the wall. The black and whiteness, just so it doesn't, there's a good contrast, and it's great. Like even his character there, he's got that black glove on with the white. It's great visually. It all looks so good.
This had to have been a location because they were only there for like one scene, but I found it impactful to show that what the rest of the world looked like. Because really, we're in Elephant Man's world, and then we're in the hospital, and we do Anthony Hopkins' house. But this is the board of the hospital, and they're talking about, should we let him stay, should we not? And I just found it really nice, the perspective and this big long room and the table. And
Absolutely, yeah. It just feels there's a sense of authority about it. There's a sense of like it's a big space. You can tell it's got high ceilings. Just the shape and feel of this room and what they're doing in there. It's like it's a very everything else is kind of small or gritty or whatever, and all the scenes. And this room is like probably one of the biggest rooms we see in the entire movie, and it's got a sense of authority, or this is like judgments coming down here. Or, it just feels.
They got quills. Good. They got quills. They got and little plates for their pipes.
Yes, and and then like all the detail, like it's kind of hard to see everything because it's so dark. But like back there you got that bust,
the bust, big fireplace. I'm assuming, and
yeah. And there's like this is a room. This room says this is a place where stuff gets decided.
Yeah,
and it's very, it also speaks of like, intellectual kind of quality of like we're deciding the world, and there's the other world where all these people agree to the steam, and we're in a different world completely.
They give him another room after that scene. They decide, okay, he can stay, so then they give him another room with like a brick, kind of like a brick wall view, but on an alley or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, this is, just even to talk about this, it's clear, like looking at this, like where they have a little bump out beside his bed. Like it's,
right.
Clearly designed that they're going to pull that wall so they can get a shot of him sitting on the bed, sleeping or whatever across the room. There's like, you can see all these little things. It's, well designed, thought out little space, because it is quite small when you're looking at it. It's got 3 doors going into it, but it's got the back door, it's got the door that comes down the little steps, and then there's another door that leads to outside, and it's kind of why would this tiny room
Crew
have 3
access? That's why.
Access, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of also it's like in the storyline, what is this room? It's some kind of like transitional room or something.
Yes, because there's a caretaker at night who pays people to come and look at him as a freak show, like through the window, like almost like he never left the freak show. Very visually hard to watch, but he's like walking outside of the guy's window, so he's not on the ground. I guess he's on the ground floor, or I can never understand it.
Yeah, he's in a place that's like the back area of the hospital or something. It's like there's an alleyway that leads to it, and there's go past coal bunkers, all that stuff. So he's given his own little room, but it's it's his little space, but it's not like like a really opulent place they gave him, but still
he
nice.
Makes it nice. Like he's there for a while. Look, he's got different painting. He's got all the picture frames up. He's got more books. He's working on that model. He's got curtains now.
He's got the model. He's building the model, and the model's symbolic as he's coming out of himself. He didn't speak at the beginning, and he speaks, and now he's being creative, and he's building this model, and there's he's making it
props.
He's making it from he tells the nurse he can't see the rest of the building. He can only see the steeple from his room, but he's making it from imagination. It's so sad. Making this whole thing up, which is great. But I was going to say about the set dressing, about all the frame photos, which I find fabulous, because it was obviously, historically at that time period, photography was coming in,
right,
and he was doing it. And it was an important talking point, obviously, when people went to have tea in someone's house, because when he goes to Anthony Hopkins' house and he's like, oh, your kids, oh, can I see that?
All up there.
There you go. Tons of pictures as well. It's obviously it's something. And then he has this little picture of his mom
on his
that he carries with him
table.
And that was like, that's kind of his connection to humanity that keeps him there. And that kind of translates into having all these pictures, his humanity is shown through the use of all this great set dressing with all these little frame photos of all his friends and these famous people who come to see him and all that. And it's kind of like, it kind of builds out his character a lot.
Because he becomes a different kind of freak show where high society wants to come and see him. And so that's who's giving him all of these pictures, because it's odd. He doesn't have any family. It's just his mom, as you're saying. Like, so it's super odd that he has all these pictures.
Yeah, he's trying to create his own family, or he's trying to create a world that he's trying to get away from being an animal. It's obviously the great scene where he screams, "I am not an animal." Yeah. So he's trying to be...
He's dancing to a picture of Anne Bancroft. Like, he's got a fantasy, that he's dressed up for her, and he's probably in love with her, and...
Yes, yeah.
And then the Nightman comes in and makes him a freak show, and I was crying, so...
I had a tear in my eye as well. When the whole... Well, and he ends up, in France, and... It's like, and they're speaking to him in French. He's giving them the things, in French.
Oh yeah,
and all that. It's like, it's just so sad because he was obviously a very, intelligent person, and So
they never really found out. Like, they even did his DNA recently in like the last 10, 15 years, and they nailed it down to like 2 different diseases, but there's a third one that they can't identify.
Right.
But
so I mean, it's amazing. They also preserved all his bones.
Yeah, they made a mask of the mold of his face
when he died.
Yeah.
So that's someone had the foresight to like hold on to all that stuff to figure out in the future. We'll figure out what was wrong with him.
Gross.
But I love Anthony Hopkins' house as well, because it's very well dressed. It's it's clearly showing this time period.
It's so overdone. There's something on every corner. Look at this. There's something like there's way too much going on everywhere, but like he's sitting in that chair and sitting on that little sofa. What is that thing? That little picture next to him, just at the right height. But I don't think it's been... Oh, I guess he's blocking. He's blocking it in that scene, but...
Yeah.
It's a lot going on. It's fantastic, but there's a lot going on in this house to show that he's a rich doctor.
He's a rich doctor, and it's kind of a contrast and of like the plainness of the Elephant Man's room or whatever. But he's... there's a lot of detailing tchotchkes, but I love the curtains.
I love the curtains and the little sewing thing in the back there. I think, all of the frames, that fabric with the tassels on that's a keeper. That's fantastic research right there.
Right. And that, this time period as well, just, technically the use of machines and stuff and the mass production, and there was new color palettes coming in at this time, in society.
Yeah. Threads,
and ways of doing stuff or making it. So they, everybody wanted we all want the latest iPhone. We all want this TV. They're no different to us. They wanted the best, Valance, or they wanted the best.
All in fact, whatever was in fashion. And then you had a party to show that you had it. Her room is fantastic.
Her little dressing room is fabulous. I mean, it's got so much detail, and I love all the photos, again, the frame photos. Yeah. It's such a thing through the whole, design of the movie, is all these little frame photos everywhere, showing, depicting life, and all the detail here, like even the pearls hanging, the gas lamps again.
Fabulous wallpaper, like a big pattern. But
drapery.
The drapery, the frames are on top of it, the lighting. She's kind of a mess. Like, she's got everything, but it's a mess, which is great with the maid.
Yeah. It's got a lot of detail. Like, she's obviously very busy. She's always like doing stuff or whatever. And it's like, she's got a lot of clutter in her room. And, great use again of like the fireplace is painted black against that wallpaper to give us a contrast. And her little table and stuff there, and her mirrors and stuff, it's all dark against the thing. All the furniture's dark. More than like, it's all kind of dark.
And that I would say this was probably a 3-wall set.
Yes, yeah. It looked like it was very kind of like just a small little set because it's only one scene
Yeah.
basically. I think.
Yeah, they might come back to her again when she's like, but this is the main scene in it.
Yes, yeah.
All right, now they take him to they take
Now
this poor guy to France.
he's in France, and this, yeah, the guy's getting drunk as his owner.
This scene is actually really dark. This is my photo from my TV. It's actually super dark. And I think I found this on a screenshot, and I was like, "Oh, mine actually shows what's going on. You can't see any of this when you're watching it." Like,
and the stuff in the background, like it looks like a painted drop.
Yeah,
looks like canvas. What I liked about this scene and that whole thing with the carnival stuff is it felt, this really feels like a throwback to, the movie Freaks, or one of those Universal movies. It just feels like a very old thing. You have all these pieces, these elements, but there's no wind really blowing. It feels very set, like it's on a stage. Even though it's outdoors, it's supposed to be outdoors. It feels like, there's nothing moving on the ground. There's no movement in any of the elements. It just feels very static, but it's still got a very great visual look.
I mean, I just noticed there's a horse there.
You didn't notice? Yeah.
I didn't notice there was a horse before. But yeah, it's
I think that whole thing where he was thrown in with the.
Do I have that? I don't have that. Yeah. It was too hard. They throw him in like a monkey cage, and it's just awful. It's just so sad.
It was really like amazingly.
But let's be positive that didn't really happen to him.
Really.
Only in Hollywood. Here's some of that freak show. Again, they pan and do some of the freak show, and
and this is
I don't
Fran.
know. I guess it's Siamese twins there or something. I don't know what's going on.
Siamese twins. There's the
tall
tall
guy.
over tall person
with a little person. Yeah.
The canvas little kind of alcoves or cubbies they're in. And it's fun because it's very circusy feel.
Well, this is equivalent to when you get the set and they're like, okay, so they're at a carnival and there's like 30 booths, and you struggle to be like, okay, well, what's in every booth, and how are we, gonna say, oh yeah, they're just doing a walk and talk. You're like, what?
Creative.
Okay, cool. So it doesn't matter what I throw in these booths, really, but we're going to make them look fantastic.
We're thinking about pulling this up to Thursday.
Yeah. It's Tuesday. You think that's cool, right? There's a storm coming.
That's positive for COVID, and we're going to,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, that's no problem. Let's just stay up all night.
We can do it. Well, I always say no first, and then I go, oh, yeah, we can do it. But... yeah, it's a quick pan of like at least 4 or 5 booths, like the one in the beginning. So I know a lot of work was put into them. But now look, so they get him, he rescues himself, really. He gets back to London, gets back to the hospital. They take him to a play, which I was fascinated with. I was like, oh my God, look how... I wonder if this was a real play that they just went and shot. Did they design all this? It's beautiful.
I mean, this is great. This is, Stuart Craig is doing a great.
Oh, man.
It's all very authentic because of that. I mean, if you watch those early movies, silent movies of the Malay brothers and stuff, Journey to the Moon or Trip to the Moon.
Yeah.
It's all like painted theatrical sets like this. And this is probably, I think this was set in this 1880s, early 90s. And, it's got that whole theatrical hand-painted set stuff. Everything's...
But the perspective...
Yeah, this perspective, it's all two-dimensional, but they build it up and with all the tree stuff to make it three-dimensional. And, that type of stuff is very early silent movie stuff. But this is clearly, well thought out little set as well for the performance here. We don't see we see a lot of like close ups and stuff.
Yeah.
Uh,
I did not remember this scene at all. And
I forgot it.
I
Yeah.
rewound it because I was like, oh, this is fantastic.
Yeah, it was really well kind of put together, and like all the painted stuff, hand painted. It's all very cool. It's very authentic to that time period. If you went to the theater in 1880s, this is the type of stuff you would see, and it's all like looks like it's all movable. They're moving the stuff in, and it's a great piece of design work that it's all put together so well.
But it is like, oh, then they goes to a theater and they're putting on this play, and then it's two sentences in a script, but it's a lot of work, and it's fantastically done.
It's fantastically done, and it's like it's only a montage basically, and it's so well done, and it conveys like a different vibe, because we have all these like nightmare elements of the visual look of all these machines and the steam and the sounds and all this stuff, and this is more like a dream sequence where he's now sitting with
upper crust
booth, and Anthony Hopkins is like, it's funny when you see Anthony Hopkins behind him, he's just like, dude, look, this guy's life has changed so much, and it's like, it's just amazing how and it's great, because this is kind of like nearly like it feels like a dream to him. He's never been to the theater before, the opera, and he's about it and everything, and it's great.
This should have been earlier, but he's on a ship to get back to London. But fantastic. I believe they shot that on a ship. I don't think that was a set.
No, I don't think this was a set.
No.
This feels like it was on location, but it's great. I was going to talk about his costume for a second. It's such a contrast.
Iconic.
The dark and the light, again, contrasts everything. Great when he's walking by walls, when he's walking on any location in it. He stands out in it, and it's so. It just feels so good. It looks so amazingly good and authentic. Like one little eye. And the stitching around it and everything.
They do a close-up at one point of the stitching around that little eye hole, which is sad. And then I had a thought when he's running, when that mob is like chasing him, and the hat never falls off. Like,
right.
Wow, he must have a hat pin or something, because his little hat doesn't fall off. But it's so simple, but it's so dramatic.
Yes. And he's just going with the one good hand, and he's it's very, very dramatic. It's such a great movie. It's
I think this is this ending scene, and he's going back to bed, and that's it.
That's it. And it's just great. Like he's achieved everything, and they they say, oh, he's dying, and he's like, it's nearly the first time in the movie that he's made his own choice, because everyone's making choices for him the entire time. He's captivated, or he's in the hospital or whatever. But now he decides to die. He decides it's his own choice. He's finished everything he wanted. And it's great. It just visually, like, nobody says that, but through the use of great set dressing, where we have that photo on the wall of the little child sleeping. Yeah. I don't know if you shot of that.
I don't have that, no.
But that shows you know what he's going to do. He's going to...
The little boy's laying down flat, and he makes a comment earlier in the film, like, I wish I could lay down flat to sleep, but they have like 6-8 pillows on his bed every night for him so he can sit upright, because I'm assuming he would have fluid in his lungs, and that's how they were like, you can't lay down. And even when he's in the cage, or when the guy beats him, he's sitting up straight, sleeping and everything. So he's never really laid down to sleep. And so the ending is, it's funny too, because there's so many pillows on his bed that
I know.
It's like, and it's not like a huge bed. And he takes the pillows off, and you think, that bed is so small. Like, how is he even going to lay down in it? Because it looked like almost like a child bed because he was sitting up in it. And I was like, how is he going to lay down that now? But they sort of push into his face of him laying completely down to go to sleep. And then that's the end. And the other thing that is incredible in this movie is the music. And
music is fabulous.
Music is fantastic. And in the beginning of the film, there's this sequence, like a celestial of his mother and everything. He's thinking of his mom. And so when at the end, when we're supposing that he's going to die, again, there's this sequence of him and his mom, and it's like the stars and her face. And it's that song from Platoon. And to me...
A Requiem, what is it? I think it's
Lynch used Samuel Barber's Adigo for strings.
Okay.
And to me, I hear that song and I just think Platoon. And now I think of Elephant Man, but it's beautiful.
It's funny because Platoon was another, like 6-7 years before it was made. Like this, because I think it was like 86 or 87.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is obviously used it first, and maybe Oliver Stone was like, oh, dude, I got to use that music.
Well, there's, it said, composer John Morris of the film argued against using the music, stating that this piece is going to be used over and over and over again in the future. And every time it's used in a film, it's going to diminish the effect of this scene. So, and that to me is like, wow, I heard it, and all I could think of is Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, dying. Yeah, dying. I
know. So it's a movie magic to me of how music or a lighting piece can stick in your head and influence you and bring thoughts back of like, and crying at Platoon and then crying because the Elephant Man's dying. So it's like invoking those emotions with the music in two completely different circumstances. It was fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah.
It really was.
Still great movie.
Yeah. I actually I think this should have been runner-up. If we're going to give a second place award, I think it should have been runner-up.
Okay.
But I actually don't think Tess should have won, so...
I was going to I thought we talk about that at the end. But we'll get to it.
So the next one is completely different from anything we're seeing.
Absolutely. This is completely shift again. This is what I love this year because the movies are all so much different.
So production designed by Yoshiro Makai. A petty theft with an utter resemblance to a samurai warlord is hired as the lord's double. When the warlord later dies, the thief is forced to take up arms in his place. So there's so many comedies in the world of like Prince and the Pauper, or you know what I mean? There's so many things of like, I was thinking like Moon over Parador or something like taking the place of the king. And this was
Dave, the movie.
Dave. And
I know.
This
is completely not that.
No. This is completely not that. And I would have to, and it was all, not dubbed. We have to read it all. Subtitled, yeah. I found it very hard to get through this movie. I have to be honest.
The thing about this movie I found was there's a lot of incredibly long scenes.
Yeah.
Nothing happens. There's no camera movement. There's, scenes where they're just talking or whatever, like at the start. And my thoughts were, particularly in the castle stuff, or the Emperor's Castle.
Right.
It's very stark, and it nearly feels like a theater set. It feels very minimal. It feels staged purposely, obviously.
Yeah.
It feels like the way they talk about stuff, and it's interesting because, the production designer, I failed to look at the credits on this, but he was also a costume designer as well as a production designer.
Oh, wait.
So I don't know if he did the costumes in this movie.
Oh, Oh, I went to the wrong thing. Um, I don't know. I'll look it up.
But when I was looking it up, Yashiro was also known for costume design, and it feels like these costumes are very colorful, very vibrant.
Yeah.
And the sets are kind of very minimal.
Very simple.
Very basic, nothing hanging on the walls, or very little on the walls. It feels like there's there's no personal character to them. You know what I mean? They feel very like not lived in spaces, but it's like it's clearly done like that to convey a message. And it's like the characters and their costumes kind of are more kind of like movement than the thing. And also, this is a color movie. So this is a Kurosawa movie near the end of his career. Most of his stuff, like Seven Samurais,
they're
a lot of his movies were black and white. And this is like, he's near the end of his career, and he's, the use of color, I think, in this as a visual language is like a story point.
Yeah.
Like stuff like the sunsets, the colors of the costumes, with the flags when they're all on the battlefields with the flags, and it's just like a big use of color. Like he uses color as a character, I feel, in this story. Shots are very static, a lot of them.
Yeah. But they keep it wide a lot.
Keep a lot of wide shots, not many close-ups. And that's what also lends to that kind of theatrical feel, I think.
It doesn't say that. Oh, it does. It has a couple credits as a costume designer, but predominantly a production designer. But I'm sure the input of the designer in the film for costumes is always,
Right. Yeah, and it just seems like, the costumes are very, like, I wouldn't say they're the set dressing, but like when you look at these walls, like
there's nothing. There's not a lot. This was cool.
This was cool. I like this little.
This was cool. It's like a peekaboo window that they built in
to use for the gun. Yeah, and this is obviously the time period is like 1570s or whatever, and feudal Japan. It's like their use of guns and stuff is just coming in. It was interesting time, obviously, for technology. Yeah. So they designed this probably for the gun, but also as a good visual point in the story.
Yeah, and it's a great shot. It's a great use of camera work there to have that.
Yeah. And then
I'd have to say the lighting in most of the film is pretty like flat to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's a few scenes where you do get like, oh, you see where the source is, like, but like even back there's obviously like a blue light.
Right.
Filler back there. Like, there's some part of the film that I couldn't understand. Is this campy? Like, is this serious? Because I'm just reading it. I don't know if I'm reading it like sarcastically or this is really death time, like wartime.
I think they wanted to keep a slight element of humor because the character, he's a thief and he looks identical to the emperor who has died.
Yeah.
His character, he's kind of like freaks out all the time or whatever, and he's, panicking and stuff. And there is a kind of a weird kind of like comical feel to some of the scenes.
Yeah.
And it's also like very basic. Things are very basic. I liked that hut they were in looking out at the urn.
I love that. It's
very visually strong. It's kind of like they're hiding, but they're peeking into another world, and it's very cool the way he set that up.
So the king dies, or the emperor dies, and they put his body in this big urn.
Yes. And then they bring him out to sea or out into the middle of the lake, and they dump the body. Yeah. That was a cool scene.
Yeah, that was cool. But it was just
Yeah.
a flat ocean. It was just flat water. Like, I don't think I put that in here because I was like, it's pretty, but it's just, what are we looking at? What are we going to discuss here? It was
Yeah,
just a
the
flat.
and stuff. But it was just kind of a strange, like you said, kind of like not comical, but kind of like a weird kind of feel to it. And then, they dump it and they tell everybody we just dumped sake into the thing.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what? Did I miss something? Did they dump some sake in there too? I think too, it's also hard for me to get to. It's 180 minutes. I mean, it was a long. All these are pretty long, but reading it and trying to like watch it design wise, it was a rough. It wasn't a great watch for me, I would say. So that I have that on my plate. I don't know. I just wasn't into it.
The thing about it is it feels like I said, it feels like nearly like a stage play in the sense that I was thinking, when I was watching this on my TV at home, I was thinking, okay, if you were watching this in the movie theater in 1980, it would be visually more, it's massive, it's on the screen, you're going to feel more, and it feels like nearly like a theatrical production, and it's very static, a lot of it. You're relying on the color. It's like I said, like it feels like Kurosawa was using the use of color as an element that, a lot of his movies were black and white before this point. Yeah. So that feels like it was something that he wanted to express as a visual character in the story, as a color.
Yeah.
Again, it's slow moving movie.
I don't know. I kept thinking, how was this nominated?
Well, I don't know. I mean, George.
I don't know.
But were executive producers on this, or they were involved with the making.
Francis Ford Coppola and
it's a Kurosawa movie. He's like a legend, obviously, and he did Seven Samurais, which that and Citizen Kane are some of the big movies of the 1940s that kind of.
I think it's 1985 or 84, 86 is another movie exactly like this nominated.
That he did as well?
I can't remember if he did it or not, but I was like, oh, there's that whole style again that was nominated.
Right. And it's very it would be interesting actually to go back and see if it was nominated in other categories.
It was only nominated for Best Foreign Film. I believe that was the only other nomination for this.
Okay. And design.
Design, yeah. But as a foreign film that gets, in for design, that's pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It feels
it's very one note, this movie. But and as you're saying, the costumes are really the set. I have to absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, and the use of, like, when I watch this, like, it's like the camera doesn't move an awful lot. It's all like, it's like you're looking at a painting that's moving in front of you.
Yeah.
Instead, there's more on the walls in these shots here, but costumes obviously, and the movement of the costumes is making up for the lack of
furniture,
dolly shots, whatever. Close-ups. The amount of close-ups in this movie is minimal.
Yeah,
it's wide and medium shots a lot, and it reflects, in the design, then the look.
I do like research-wise, finally, like in this scene, I feel like, oh, look at the tables that they had and the bowls and then the lamp in the back with the little screen around it. And
yes, and this feels like it's purposely, like, this is more, like, I guess also the fact that when we're looking at the earlier stuff, it's all kind of like in their kind of battle mode, and it's all like, this is not a relaxed place we're in. It's a very basic thing. It's a bunch of guys. I was like, at this point, this is like probably an hour and 10, 15 minutes. And it's like, finally, there's women in this movie. It's not like a bunch of guys walking around being moody for an hour and a half or whatever. I was like, is there any women at all in this movie?
Yeah.
And then it's a different feel. It's, softer. It's the most dressed sets, I think, in the entire movie.
Yeah.
Was these sequences.
But then there's this.
This I want to talk about. Yeah, this obviously the dream nightmare sequence. This is clear use of I'm into color. I want to express a color, and the lighting and the sets and that painted backdrop there, and the sand and the light on the sand and the water. You know, that was a great use of color, obviously, and as a visual, character, and to express the emotions of this character at that time through a dream sequence like this. I thought that was one of my favorite parts of this movie.
I'd have to say this woke me up.
Yeah. it totally, like, there was, it's so kind of like, oh, it's more of the same, and story.
The thing, there's a lot of sets here, actually, like, because it keeps going. It keeps
going and going, and like all the characters, obviously all these flags and stuff, everybody's got a little flag on their back, and that the color and the movement of that through the thing. But definitely, it's a long movie and it's very static, and I was thinking to myself, like, if my nephew was watching this movie, attention span is like his TV is YouTube videos of guys playing video games. I was like, how he would sit through this. So it's just funny how our attention spans as we get older. Like, maybe in 1980, this felt like a normal. It was a slow movie, but like now we're just, come on, the next scene.
All the nominated movies, and I've watched quite a few in the last 2 months, they're all about 2 hours. I think the shortest thing I've watched was Marty in 1955 at like 90 minutes. Everything's like 2 hours, and I'm fine with it. You know what I mean? Like, I want to watch a great movie, so I'm fine with it, and you want to, like, just, eat it up. But when it's not your jam, it's a little hard to stay with it. But in appreciation of like, look at this. Is this a build? Did they build all this? This is crazy.
This is a great. I felt they probably shot a lot at this location, or this build. Whatever. Yeah. But it does. It looks quite fresh. From a.
Yeah. That's true.
From an art director, production designer point of view, looking at it, it looks like there ain't a bunch of dust on the roof. It's not some like historical park they went to shoot in. It feels like all this stuff with the these bamboo
fences, or I don't know.
It's in the stuff here, like keeping the people out and stuff, or the prisoners in.
Yeah.
Like that all like looks like it's all been put in, and it's like overall the guard towers, everything. It looks good. It looks really good. They probably use this a lot.
Yeah.
But it's a good build.
And then this, I'm assuming, is a build.
Yes.
And they're just tons of extras.
Tons of extras. Oof. And it's like the whole like aesthetic of the movie is tons of guys fighting and tons of extras walking around and like big wide shot.
Yeah.
It's epic,
It was good research. This was good research, I would say.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to see this. And it's interesting because I find when you watch some of Kurosawa's earlier movies, they're more character-based, and it's more guys like, drinking too much sake and shouting, and two guys having a fight in the street, in the mud. And this is more grand. It's more, use of color, and the design kind of reflects that. It's all very kind of big. And, it's a different feel completely.
Yeah. I mean, I epic, like, movie, I get it.
I feel this movie, when I watched it, it felt, well, it was a period movie, but it felt kind of, throwback to earlier, very long shots, very kind of.
Yeah. Well, I just thought it was a different style of movie that maybe is popular there. That's all I thought.
Yeah, it was, and it won the Palme d'Or, as we see, at the Cannes Film Festival. But it's definitely, visually everything had looked great. I thought. I mean, for what it was. I mean, it was like a very good use of color with all and incorporating costume stuff into the design, the overall design of the movie. Even though the sets are very felt very sparse.
Yeah.
It definitely had a look.
But it was it was sparse because that's what it was. But there was just so much of it. Like we said, it was like almost 2 hours in, and then you get to the females. Like it was just a lot.
Yeah, it was. There was a lot of moody guys talking about whatever.
Yeah, the plan was. What's the plan? Like, there's too much talking for me. All right.
Yeah.
Look, Star Wars. I mean, completely different. Production designer Norman Reynolds, Leslie Dilley, Harry Langend, and Alan Tompkins. Set decorator Michael Ford. This is the second installment. This is the real number 2 to me. After the rebels are overpowered by the Empire, Luke Skywalker begins his Jedi training with Yoda, and while his friends are pursued across the galaxy by Darth Vader and bounty hunter Boba Fett. Mr. Norman Reynolds died earlier this year, which is a bummer.
All that, yeah.
And he's a huge designer in our field, and just spectacular designs came out of him. And
absolutely.
Michael Ford, the decorator, I have him. No, I don't have my thing here. He also. Oh, no, this isn't going to come up. Great. I'm also a fan of his, and then I didn't write down what it was. I just have the link, and then the link didn't work, so that's cool. But a total number of 64 sets were constructed for this movie, which I would think it would be more. And they started filming on the glacier. They started filming in the cold and went from there in Norway. It's just like, okay. And then I had read that Mark Hamill had a real problem with this film because he was basically with Yoda and by himself the whole film. Like, he has minimal scenes with everyone else. So
yeah, and it's interesting also in the early scenes where he gets attacked by the Wookiee, or not the Wookiee, the abominable snowman.
Yeah.
Like, he had actually been in a car crash in real life.
Yeah.
Face cut up, so they kind of wrote that into the storyline. That's why he was attacked and stuff. But it's what I like about Empire Strikes Back is it's the movie that opens up the Star Wars universe design-wise. Yeah. I mean, first movie it does what we have. 2 worlds, 2 looks. We got the desert, Tatooine, and then we got the Death Star, the industrial evil look. And this movie, we're in the Hoth, we're in the snow, we're in Dagobah with the swamp, we're in the Cloud City, we're also in the Imperial.
Yeah, on different ships. We're in many ships.
Yes, we've got so many different looks. It kind of expands on the whole world a lot. So this is the movie that I feel is more kind of establishes the look of the Star Wars franchise.
I also always find it super weird that George Lucas didn't direct this.
Yeah, that was another thing. He, I can't remember the reason why he didn't direct this. Because he did direct, I think he directed Return of the Jedi, didn't I? Did he?
No, he didn't.
He didn't?
I don't think he did.
He just did, and then he did The Phantom Menace was the only other one I think he did, yeah.
Hold on one second. I went back to Michael Ford, the set decorator, also did Titanic, GoldenEye, Empire of the Sun, and Return of the Jedi, Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, his career is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Another point I was going to bring up was that literally all the designers, art directors, set decorator, at some point they all worked on a James Bond movie.
Yeah, that's true. It's funny you put that up. I thought the same thing.
Yeah, and it's great because, well, I was going to talk about the fact that near the end, we can talk about when we get there, I guess, but it's just where Vader and Luke are having the lightsaber fight and all that. It feels like a nearly kind of like it's got elements of supervillain Bond, supervillain kind of archetype.
Yeah.
But we can talk about when we get to it.
What I enjoy about the sets and the decor of Star Wars films is that there's these pipes coming out of there, and then they made that repetition in the top of it, or then it's around the room. There is such simple design elements but used like repetitively.
Yes.
And that is so graphic, and I don't think they could have made that. That's the right decision. Like, they totally nailed it in making this world of this repetitive thing. They're just busting this stuff out, and it's all the same, and that's how this was made. I'm sure that's the discussion. Like, no, they just made this panel and they put it everywhere. And then the integration of light.
Yes, this is great. I want to talk about this one.
The integration of light in so many of the production design elements is fantastic in all of these movies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, and the lighting here, just from a structural point of view of the set. Like I noticed this a lot when I was watching this movie. If you look up, they have like the ceiling pieces here. Yeah. They have like soft ceilings, or they're using it as a bounce light or a fill light. Yeah. And then they're all lit from below. There's a lot of like the faces and everything are lit from the set dressing. They're looking at a monitor or whatever. It's got that, and then it's got a fill light up the top. So all these sets, like when you look at them, particularly in the hot stuff, and then on this Imperial Star Destroyer and all this stuff, they've got a lot of pieces, where they light from like through the top piece as well a lot.
Yeah. Oh, I have more examples, but this, like you're saying, like the integration on the set dressing, on the walls and everything, and you can think of so many things when they're running down hallways, and it's just that simple geometric designs constantly. Right. It's fabulous, and you buy it, and it's just the best. Like even here, all right, it's like a four-sided triangle-ish thing coming on, and then we're just gonna flip it, and then we're gonna make them smaller, and then that's it. That's their windows.
Like, yeah, that's it. It's like, but it's also like when you're looking at this visually. I mean, it's like you're inside a monster's mouth or something. Like they're nearly like the windows are like nearly like teeth or something. You know what I mean? It's got that there's a lot of strong verticals or 45-degree angles in a lot of the Death Star stuff. It's all sharps, it's verticals, a lot of it, and it gives that visual feel of menace, or it's very like, this is the bad guy's place.
But even look at this, look at like they sunk the floor to make the workspaces and everything, and I mean, that's a lot of work. It's a lot. This thing was built up. That means this is on a platform. It's like it's amazing designs to me. I believe this was all done in London on the stages there. Yeah,
it was all done there, and it's except for the model shots obviously were done here.
Yeah,
but ILM, but it's like really well made movie, and all these guys who worked on this movie, all the art department, they've done such a fantastic job of we got different looks on everything. I was going to just say that Harry Langage, he did Moonraker, Bond film, but he also worked on 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh.
So because
I'm watching actually for 1968. So yeah, I'm way into his work.
Great. I always quote that when a DP says to me, "I can't shoot the set because it's white."
Yeah, well, they did 50 years ago, so get with it.
Have you watched 2001?
Yeah.
Watch Empire Strikes Back with the hot stuff. It's doable. Don't come back to me with that. But
I don't think that's well, it is, but it's not as much as it was 10 years ago.
Right.
I think the cameras have gotten so sophisticated and everything that white is an enemy to them, at least the good ones.
Yes.
So,
Let's get painted, oh, you can't do this, we can't, it has to be matte, it has to be, can you paint it like off-white and Navajo white? It's okay, well, we're trying to do this, whatever, spaceship, or we're trying to give this vibe of, and it's a white set, so it has been done. It's not like it's never been done in the history of film.
You can do it. I believe in you. This the swamp scene I always find fascinating, of like, this is a set.
Yeah. And this is fantastic as well. You were saying about Mark Hamill, like literally he's the only actor for 4 months with a puppet.
Yeah. He's really, and then he's in the space thing with like R2-D2, and then they find him at the end. Like, he really had hardly any scenes with everyone else.
Yeah, I know. He was in the beginning and he's in the end.
Yeah.
And like he spends a big chunk of the time
talking right to Yoda. He's becoming a Jedi. I mean, he had to practice. He had to go off and practice.
Yeah.
I love all of these, all the swamp, like the greens and the smoke.
Smoke, the greenery, it's so, everything hanging down like that. It's all those vertical shapes, and it's on top of them. I find this interesting because particularly the scene where he goes into the kind of like little cave thing made out of the reeds, and he runs into it's the hallucination thing, and he runs into,
and then he has the helmet there.
Yeah, and it goes, and that's kind of symbolic of.
I don't have that.
It's got a same kind of vibe as when he actually encounters Vader later in the Cloud City, in the little place where Ernest plays.
And it's his face, so he sees
all those like verticals in the darkness again. But yeah, this set was amazing. They must have they put a lot of it was a lot put into it. Everybody's in here for 3 months or whatever. I mean, he's got how much of the movie was half hour, maybe?
At least. I mean, it's broken up, but he's there almost the whole movie. He's in training.
Yes.
Great. The spaceships and everything, I have such a greater appreciation now that I have done spaceships. The buttons and the graphics and the toggles and all of it. Like, it's a craft on its own of designing all of it, and then implementing it and not making it look too hokey and like Spaceballs or something. Like, it's really, really well put together. And this is also the great thing about this is like, we see the Millennium Falcon in the first movie, and it's like Luke's first reaction is, what a hunk of junk, or whatever. And then it is a hunk of junk in the second movie because he can't get the hyperdrive. Broken. Yeah, it's broken.
It's broken. I'm welding this piece to that piece. I think the coupling, whatever, negative polarity, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like the whole thing is falling apart. The whole ship is falling apart, and it's a great character because it's the lights come on or they go off and he hits the wall and the lights all come back on, and it kind of speaks like of the Han Solo character and the Chewbacca character. Like they're keeping this thing barely going.
Yeah, it's great.
It's got so much detail in there. It's a great piece of design, production design, and dressing, and
it's a lot of time and a lot of electrics and motherboards, and it's a lot.
And all the pieces, and like they're climbing around pipes, and they're doing this coming out of everywhere like that. It's great.
Yeah, they're up there, like even like all those buttons up there. No, you don't know what they are, but you believe it. And there's little things coming out of there, little hoses, and
right. And it's great. You can see like at the top, like reflected on her back and stuff. You can see on the top of the wall, like the great. They've used that as like a gobo or something, to through it to give them like the shafts on her and stuff of light, and it feels so hokey and junky. You don't know what, like she doesn't even know what she's repairing, but she just keep hoping.
Like then in Darth Vader down there, he's got some red lights every so often. That probably means those are buttons or something. Like it's little panels. It's cleaner. The Death Star, they got it going on. They got a clean look too.
And the great thing about again, like I was saying, is the great use of verticals, the vertical design, those like columns and all the stuff on the walls, all the detail. It's all very symmetrical, but it's given that kind of visual, feeling of like imprisonment or something. It's just like, it's very kind of all those verticals, like visually when it gives you a sense of like this more kind of like menacing design.
Yeah.
In contrast to like the hokiness of the Millennium Falcon, or Dagobah with all the earthy, swampy stuff with Yoda.
Or like, look at this. Great. Like, there's just a bunch of tubes, and they're just making it up as you go along, and you're just in. Like
and the thing about it as well is all the Rebel spaceships, everything they have, like his helmet's filthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
All around him. It's like we're just about keeping this rebellion together.
Yeah.
Hopefully we,
They have a great also like the miniatures.
Yeah, fabulous. Yeah. I mean, it's miniatures. The detail on all that, like putting all those little pieces together and the miniature details. It's great because we would do this today. This would be all done in a computer.
Yeah. We wouldn't make these models anymore.
Done with some, putting it all together by hand, and it's
and the perspective and everything with the the black and the black. I mean, I don't know, it's fantastic. I love it. I love all of it. I love, again, buttons in the background, or just again the simple pattern. Yeah,
and just your repetitive simple pattern through all the technology in this is great. The looks are the hokey, falling apart look, or the repetitive design look in the more technological stuff.
Even the window of the Millennium Falcon and the same shape.
It's like a World War II bomber or something, like a B-52 or something. It's just got that kind of.
Are you bummed that they enhanced the film?
I kind of
this. What is it? Like that guy wasn't there when we saw it in the theater. That guy wasn't there.
Well, who was there then?
See the dark. Well, it wasn't that guy. Even it's a different actor.
Actor, yeah.
It's the okay. So this is the actor from the Sith and all. They put him in there.
They've added all that in, and then Hayden Christensen is obviously in.
Yeah, at the end. But then this has been enhanced. Like when they walk in. This scene, they enhanced this scene.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm mixed, because obviously this is what George Lucas wanted to show in 1980, but he couldn't.
Right.
Because he didn't use whatever technology they had at the time. But it does kind of like take away from when I was a kid in the movie theater watching it.
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes I feel like, okay, well, why bother? It's been done. Why go back 15, 20 years later and redo it? But I guess it's to sell it to a newer audience,
Yeah, just to.
And it's funnier, like when I have conversations with people that are younger than me, they all love like the Phantom Menace and the Attack of the Clones, the Clone War one, and Revenge of the Jedi more than the old ones because they grew up with those ones, and it's just funny. I find how
I always loved Return of the Jedi. That was always my favorite, the number 3. And then as I get older, and actually my boys watch a lot of Star Wars here and there, so I've seen this recently a lot. It is kind of stupid. Number 3, number 2 to me is the best, but you can't get away from number 1 as being the best. So I got a tie. I don't know. And I think the newer ones aren't bad. All of those. I thought Solo was good. Rogue One was fantastic. I'm obsessed with Andor. I cannot believe it wasn't nominated this year. And Andor's actually this set reminds me a lot of what they did in Andor, of taking like a deco or like a style and then just making it sci-fi to me.
Yeah, like the what's her name? I'm blanking on her name in Andor. The chancellor.
Her place is
Place has
very
got that kind
deco. Yeah.
deco vibe, and even the like there's like gold chains hanging and stuff, and there's like when you think of deco, when I think of art deco, I think of like gold statues of eagles that are got that very sort of deco minimal feel to it and stuff, and yeah, they've really incorporated, and in stuff like these elements as well, some of it here. Some of this feels like a little bit more kind of postmodern kind of vibe.
Yeah.
But it's still the use of pattern, like simple pattern, like repeated, repetitive. And everything's clean and white, and it's in the clouds. It's got this whole world does feel like her house as well. Yeah, in Andor.
It's also the most I can't think of another set that is realistic, like with the patterns on the walls and like the almost like molding on the walls. Yeah. And then the datum, although it's all the same color, they still gave it like a chair rail kind of.
It doesn't feel as sci-fi as other elements in this movie,
but it's pushed. They've pushed it and they've nailed it.
But it feels more like not a lived in space, but like a place like that is kind of feels like a lot of people are in, and it's kind of slightly contemporary in the feel, where the other ones are very fantastical.
Yeah.
They convey like the Imperial stuff is very much menacing and militaristic and stuff, and then all the rebel stuff is all like falling apart. Mm-hmm. And this feels like a kind of a calm middle ground kind of in that movie.
Yeah. Oh, here's a great look at all that dressing.
Yeah, that's great. Down there, all that stuff, and
the amber lighting from all the metals being melted, and
and the small lights, but they're all popping and stuff, and then the metal, obviously the furnace thing there, and it's great, like detail in there. And this is like
go ahead. The
back.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just gonna say this is like the other side of the same place.
Yeah.
This is
it's like
where all the other people are keeping all that fabulous white Art Deco stuff going. It's these guys,
There's such great lighting and such great lighting opportunities that the designers have given the DPs for these films, which I think is incredibly important to point out, and it's a lot of uplighting, which actors don't usually like.
Yeah, and then like when you look at like the elements, like those like bent vertical bars, and then the other tubes and stuff that are running horizontally.
Yeah.
That like if you didn't have that there and you just had that blue smoke happen, it would just fall away.
Yeah.
These are great like design elements. You're putting something visually that when they're moving around doing their fight, that there's some kind of like static element that's in focus right behind them that gives more of a visual look. Otherwise it would just look kind of flatter if it was just they're just fighting with just smoke behind them. And also about this as well is what I love about this particularly is when Luke and him are fighting in here.
Oh wait, I have that.
Yes. Yeah. So this feels like also the color palette in this, like, the blacks with the orange. And what I was thinking about was, like in Revenge of the Jedi, and then also in Obi-Wan, where like, Darth Vader hangs out on that volcano.
Right.
This is kind of like foreshadowing. This is his jam. This is his vibe. I'm into this kind of like look, you know what I mean? In the fight, when they have the fight in here, it's like, it's got the same color palette as that, The smoke is good, and again, here we see all these elements, these pipes and stuff, the vertical pipes and the
But look at the
horizontal pipes.
light. Like there's a light. That whole design comes to a point.
Yes,
It's so
and
fantastic.
it's so fantastic because
So
it's
fantastic.
thought out that they want to have this big smoky area, but someone's saying, well, you're gonna have to need to put these elements in to give it some kind of breakup,
Yeah.
and great production design,
Yeah.
great thought design there to have that thing, because it's very evident when they're having the fight and stuff is moving.
Yeah.
And if you didn't have that, if they're against a flat background with just the smoke and the stuff, it would just feel, it wouldn't be as dramatic.
Right.
And this, and it's believable. I love this because when he goes through this window, first of all, it looks like a spider web.
Yeah.
And it's also very evident in Return of the Jedi, where the Emperor's hanging out and he's got that window, and it's like a spider web. And this is like, he's going to get sucked out through this thing. It's like, he's really not prepared for this fight.
They really shouldn't be putting windows in here. The design of this, that wasn't smart. Because this could, someone could break that and fall through.
Exactly. But it's kind of like, metaphorically, he's near, he could be sucked into this world of the dark side, and obviously this is great, simple design repeated over and over, and it's a great backdrop to this dramatic fight they're having. It's always great to have in any kind of big fight sequence, is always have like a kind of simplistic.
Oh, and then this kind of mimics when Han Solo fights his son, right?
Yes, right? And they're on
the bridge.
Similar. It's like it's a throwback or a call out to that. Yeah,
I didn't think of that.
I just thought of that as well when you said that. Yeah, this is great. I love this.
This is so great.
This is and all the upside down aerials and stuff. It's just it's so like he's so beaten, and this is the end.
He's got the one hand. He's hanging onto a pipe.
Yeah,
on the
and
bottom.
It's sunset. It's curtains for me. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And Yoda was right.
Yeah.
Yoda.
Just use the Force.
And he is scared, and it's a great visual as well, and more simple design, just repetitive metallic verticals against a fabulous horizontal backdrop.
Yeah.
And
light it and shoot it.
Yeah. Actually, it's great. It's simple.
And these shots are always just so iconic, of like the spaceships coming into land and the little landing bays, and then taking it into hyperspace, and
again, like when we're inside here, the Death Star, the Imperials have the great use of verticals, even though it's all lights this time. It's always that vertical, giving it that menacing feeling, I feel.
Yeah.
And then the great lights, it's perfect. And here again, we can see on the side the use of a lighting element, that fill light coming through from the ceiling pieces again.
Right.
Great use of incorporating that into your set design.
Yeah. Because you're giving opportunity, but you're also controlling it at the same time.
Yeah. Your design is controlling a look, lighting, how it should be lit. Yeah. It's great.
It's great. That design of that film is fantastic and has been replicated and wants to be replicated many, many times over, I feel.
And like I said, I feel this movie was the one that kicked off the real visual look of the Star Wars universe.
Yes.
A real, besides, Star Wars had sand, desert, Tatooine, the cantina stuff. And then the rest of it was the Death Star. But this opens up the world.
Yeah.
We see in all the TV shows now, and the look. And as we talked about, Andor, the kind of feel to it in the Cloud City, reflected in sort of areas of Andor. And, even in Andor when he's in the prison as well. I know we're not talking about Andor, but
I know, it's so great.
White, the shapes and everything. He's in the prison. He's in that orange and white jumpsuit. And,
huge set. Huge set build of this prison, and it's fantastic. And
yeah, and it's such a great show, and I love the way they broke it into three blocks or
Yeah.
4 blocks, the episodes, and
Yeah.
it's just like every one of them is kind of different.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And then we have Tess,
Yes.
a film by Roman Polanski.
Right on.
Production designers Pierre Geoffroy and Jack Stevens. And then I could not find a set decorator. But it's a story of a strong-willed young pheasant girl who attracts the affection of, I would say, many men.
Yes.
And her life of being poor and rich and never really finding herself, I would say.
Exactly. I mean, it was always like her. I don't know. It was always the story is like. I mean, obviously, she doesn't find herself, and it's like it's a movie about that, I guess, to a certain point. But some different looks, and I like the way this was a lot of locations as well.
Yeah.
This dress locations. This house is great.
So this was Wessex. Well, this is also Victorian era, just like Elephant Man, actually.
Yes, pretty much the same time period. I love his little seat.
Yeah,
because he's like, he discovers that he was, d'Urberville, they're D'Urberfields, and they came from royalty and they lost all their money, and he had no idea until the vicar told him the whole backstory of his.
Yeah, he didn't know who he was walking around for 60 years, and then some guy tells him, and then he establishes himself as being some sort of royalty, and wants his family and his daughter to go out and tell everyone this is who we are, and go find your cousins and your aunts and uncles and tell them we're related because they're better off than we are.
Exactly, yeah. And then his little seat is like his throne, and it's so like low to the ground. It's not like he's like a tiny king. You know what I mean? It's like I'm slouching out of the seat. Like it's only like, I don't know, it's like about 6 inches or 10 inches off the ground. It's a great piece of set dressing.
It's also comparable to Coal Miners.
Absolutely. And it's got kind of the same kind of visual thing where it starts off kind of very poor and, ends up richer, at the end of the movie where she ends up at the end. And also the color palette is very earthy tones as well at the beginning of this. It's all the farm life, and we're outdoors, and there's
so much farming. I mean, I think I learned how to care for chickens and cows and pick vegetables and wheat, and she does everything. This movie goes from like one thing to another, but she goes to find her rich cousin, her aunt, and then her cousin interrupts the visit and is the creepy cousin, and he wants to make out. But he's in a tent.
It's nearly like he's got this tent because he's trying to establish himself or some kind of like.
Yeah, I'm not with the house. I'm in the tent. I'm moving my stuff out to the guest house, my tent.
Yeah, I'm just going to be out in the tent because this is the kind of place to be, and I'm kind of like a little showman.
But that billowing drapery inside was fantastic.
Fantastic, yeah. It looked really good.
Yeah.
It was a great little. And it was also like an interesting character thing. It was kind of like for him. It established him straight away, like what he was about. She was now stepping into another world from all the milking of the cows and doing that, and she's meeting her cousin, and he's like creepy hitting on her and everything. But it was definitely a good look. And then like the eccentrics in the house they go in with the pigs.
They go in with the chickens. She's stroking the chickens. The older woman, her aunt, right? She goes to work for the chicken people. Or was she stroking pigs? No.
No, it wasn't pigs.
It was chicken. I think it was chickens because it was so weird.
Yeah. But also the birds in the house and stuff. And, all the dressing and everything, it's very, done well and everything. I never found any of it like stood out though.
Yeah.
In the sets, like they were all nicely like done, and like the wallpaper and everything, but like this won the Oscar.
I
And
know. I don't get it.
Like, I don't get this. And I don't know if it was because it was a Polanski movie and it was, popular or what it was, but I was like, you're up against Elephant Man, you're up against Empire Strikes Back,
There are some beautiful shots, and the cinematographer
Photography is
died.
great. Again,
He died, and they said that he did most of the exterior shots, and most
Right.
of the interior was done by the second DP. And there are some. I mean, this looks like a painting.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
It's good. Like it feels like, again, this is like the time period where in the 70s, late 70s, where the higher speed film was coming in. You could capture more color or more elements in the detail and stuff. Lower lighting could be used.
Yeah.
And this is like throughout. And I was talking about the Kurosawa movie as well, where the use of color as well. It's all like technology is kind of driving some of this with the color film. And this is great. Like her world, as well as being, she's always like on the verge of being like, I'm going to be royalty one day, and I'm going to get a tape, and I'm back milking the cows.
Well, the guy, the guy. I mean, her cousin ends up raping her, and then she has a child who dies, and that's like so sad.
Very
so sad. And then she's like, all right, I'm gonna pick myself up, and I'm gonna go do wheat. I'm gonna go to another town. I gotta get away from there. I gotta go milk cows in another town as a job. I found this just fascinating research of like the dripping of the milk.
Yeah,
and the curd and
done, like, I mean, the authenticity of like the time period and all this stuff they're doing with the milk and dripping the milk out of the bags, like the cloth bags and stuff, is they're making cheese or whatever, and are purifying the milk, and great detail in the design and the dressing and everything.
But I am assuming they're shooting this in, although it's supposed to be England, they're shooting it in France. I think a lot of this was there.
I mean, this is obviously, they went to a location and it's like, this is perfect. We love this.
But even the cow, they didn't. Yeah, this isn't a build.
Yeah, and they probably added older elements, but it's a heavy location movie. I mean, there's some sets in this, but it was really a location movie, and it's got some really nice elements in it. I still don't know why it won the Oscar, but
I don't either.
Just but it's like, we know how it's the politics of stuff and the voting and stuff. Sometimes
she meets we think she meets a nice guy, and then I did love the detail of this little honeymoon suite that they have. And the woman has hung branches for good luck and to fertilize, get it on. But just the design of the bed and everything, and this house is, I think, a location.
It just doesn't feel. I mean, it just feels like a lot of dressed locations or painted stuff. It doesn't. I mean, it looks good. It looks authentic. It looks of the time period. It looks good, but nothing wows you about the sets.
No. And then, I mean, I love that green.
Yes.
This green room, I thought, really stood out to me, and the use of this mirror in this scene, and she eventually tells her new husband, "Hey, by the way, I've already had sex. I actually already had a baby, and I was raped, and the baby died." And the guy can't get over it and leaves her the next day. And this poor thing, he kicks her out of the honeymoon suite. She's got to walk to God knows where back to that cow farm, which now there's no more cows, but she's living with her friend. She's back to kind of like where she started, but there is great detail in these little sets, which is really great, and the wall surfaces and everything, and
absolutely, and it's very authentic. It feels very authentic. I think it's a movie that's very much it feels like a painting, or
Yeah.
it's like it's aesthetically like the opening shots where they were all like doing the little parade down the thing, and the lighting and everything. And the other thing I was going to say as well, as the movie progresses, um it goes like from like summertime, and it's very kind of like a summery vibe,
Oh
to
yeah.
in this, like it's obviously the wintertime vibe, but there's a good use of transition of like just the elements where they all have the coats on, and it's feeling like more grimmer now. Like she starts off and everything's like, here we're out in the field and it's all
Yeah.
cool, and it's we're dancing around and I'm in love, I mean, whatever. And then it's like, and then she's the tent and everything, and by the time we get further on, it just feels colder and frostier.
Yeah.
Then of course, near the end of the movie, then it's she's like obviously transformed into someone else.
Yeah. She goes back to the guy who raped her, who was wealthy, her cousin. And they get married, and then the guy who threw her out, who she's actually still married to, comes back to like, hey, I still love you. And she's
Yes.
like, you're too late. Look at what I got here. But she's miserable.
Yes.
But this house is like on the shores. I was like, oh, it's Wildwood.
Yeah.
It's on the shore of a coast in England somewhere, it's supposed to be. And it's a beautiful house. Now, I don't know if this is a set. I don't know. That weird
I felt
window.
this addressed. It felt like the way he came in the door and everything. It just felt
Oh yeah.
like it was a location that it was heavily dressed. The wallpaper and everything. But it felt to me like it was a location. The stairs, everything. This felt like it might have been a set. This room,
Yeah.
to me.
This is like she goes upstairs like, oh, I just sent the man I really love away, and here's my asshole husband.
Right.
In this, but I love the orange. Like all of a sudden, this color pops in.
Right.
Because
it's very transformative from the beginning of the movie. Again, another like great transition as the movie progressed, of visually how it looks, and all the curtains and the fabrics and the sofas and everything. She's got to royalty.
Yeah.
In the sense, like she's got what she was supposed to have. I liked the scene. We didn't have any. We didn't talk about it, but there's a scene where she goes to the church. She goes to the D'Urberville tomb
with
and all
the
that
tombs,
stuff.
yeah.
That was interesting, looking around visually just to see all that stuff. But it was all like they're all dead and it's all gloomy, and it kind of says to her, well, fuck, like this is the closest I'll get to actually my lineage. And,
yeah, so I might as well go with my cousin. I actually had a picture in there, but it didn't read as a picture.
Right.
It was more of a scene that you could see all the crypts and everything. It didn't really read, I thought, to talk about. But yeah, that's kind of what makes her decide of like, well, he's going to give me money. I can send it back to my family. My dad died and I got to help support my mom. So I might as well go with this guy. And then he kind of makes fun of her and turn of, I didn't see it coming. She kills him.
Exactly. I mean, that was like, it felt like out of character with the rest of the movie in a sense.
She's just had enough. She stabs him with a knife while he's sitting right there. And then she goes and gets on the train. This, I did love. This is the woman finding the blood downstairs. But I did love how, like, oh, she had her own little nook over there.
Yes.
Some sort of Victorian little...
Yeah.
Fascinating. But the train...
They had a big budget for set dressing, I think.
Yeah. They had a gorgeous train.
Yeah, the train's beautiful. There's a lot of money put into this, but to me, when I'm watching it, there's nothing that goes, wow, that scene where they, whatever, the visual, I just feel it's all very, it transitions in color and kind of structure, but I just feel nothing jumped out at me.
No. I mean, even this ending scene is obviously a location that maybe this bedroom that they hide out in is a build, maybe. That beautiful stained glass window. And not only is she dressed in red, but this bedroom is red, which
Right.
is stark from like the rest of the room. And then, in another odd thought, they end up at Stonehenge. They fall asleep at Stonehenge, and then the police come and nab her, and they hang her.
Go back once. Say I wanted to make a comment about the room. They're in the red room. I like the way the stained glass windows is all like those trees and stuff like that, and it's kind of, you know, she's sitting there with all that stuff, and it's kind of harking back to, this is like, you know, the fields where they met, and it's outdoorsy. There's kind of an outdoorsy vibe coming into this red kind of room, and it's kind of like a nice visual kind of contrast.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, that room is very pretty, and the big post bed, and it's nice. They found an abandoned house to hide out in for one night, and then somebody comes in, which is weird. No, although I did read that they had to build Stonehenge
as a model.
I
see. Yeah.
Well, she's sitting on it. They built some of it, but yeah, I mean, it blows my mind that this one. Sorry, it does.
Yeah, I was shocked when I was, you know, obviously doing research, and I was like, Tess won? Oh my God. Because I think, you know, who knows? I mean, it's a different time period. It's, you know, 40 plus years ago. And,
what wasn't nominated was Raging Bull.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I thought it might have been the next year. But I thought it might have been in the category for the next Oscars. But you're right, yeah, and that's interesting. That wasn't, because that's a great movie, and it's visually a black and white movie as well.
Visually stunning. I mean, cinematography wise, it's stunning also. But I mean,
sets are great, and it's like there's a transition in time and everything in that movie as well, from the 40s through the 50s. You know, it's a great movie.
To me, I would have voted for Empire Strikes Back.
I would have said Empire Strikes Back with my, you know, the other hot favorite would have been Elephant Man.
Yes, I agree.
It's just another movie that you could kind of turn off the audio and kind of like see all these worlds and kind of grasp the story of what was going on, what was happening to this guy's life, without any dialogue. And, you know, honestly, like, if you think of it, there is a lot of scenes in Elephant Man where he doesn't talk. He's just by himself building his model, or he's looking at pictures on the walls or whatever.
The music is really good.
Doesn't talk, and, you know, more of it fills in the gaps, you know. And it's a very visual movie. I would have definitely that and Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think, you know, if the nominees from 1980 were in 2023, Empire Strikes Back would have won.
Because we had never seen anything like Empire Strikes Back.
Exactly. That's what I mean. What I love about that movie is it's opening up the whole Star Wars universe.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. We've seen plenty of films like Tess before.
Yes.
And I don't know. I can't believe that it would be a Roman Polanski vote for that. Maybe he's not going to get director, so they'll give him but he didn't get it. The other guys got it, but I just don't get it. I just think that Raging Bull was really miss there.
It's interesting that, you know, it seems like the least designed movie, in the sense, I mean, its authenticity looks good, but there's nothing that stands out. Like, even the Kurosawa movie, like, that has got a visual language, a very distinct look.
Yeah.
Even though it's very cool, even though it's, you know, clearly like the colorful costumes, but it's got a look. It's got something like where I feel with Tess, it kind of, nothing stands out. It just kind of fades into the background. So I was very surprised that it won the Oscar.
There was nothing to me that was like, oh, and I get it. I would have voted for this. It wasn't. Yeah,
exactly. It's just interesting. And then, you know, even Coal Miner's Daughter, I would have put up before Tess.
Yes.
Of the 5 movies, I mean, I felt that was the least visually, from a production design point of view, worthy of the Oscar. Like even Coal Miners had like more distinct elements, like you're saying, like the wallpaper, the newspaper on the walls. There was, the character was really there, and it like the great transition of like visuals in it as well. But you know, we weren't voting back then.
Yeah, we weren't. We didn't have a vote back then. We don't have. I don't have a vote now for Oscars, so. But I don't know. I mean, it's a good year of study, but it's a miss for celebrating the craft, to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is an interesting mix, but again, I just, you know, I don't understand the Tess one, and I don't understand how it won.
No,
either.
I don't get it.
For all these other movies,
but some beautiful. I mean, there's some beautiful sets in these 5 movies that have been duplicated and have been, you know, talked about. But I have never heard. I never even saw Tess before. I've never heard anyone reference Tess.
I mean, I knew of it. I had not watched it.
It's almost 3 hours long too.
I watched it, and it's just like, yeah. I mean, another again different time period.
Yeah.
And I think it probably wouldn't be nominated today. I don't know. It's hard to know.
I don't think so.
If it would be nominated today. I think. You know, it is, you know, it just shows you, it just reflects the time period and what was popular at that time, or what, you know, there might have been a big push by the, you know, whoever, the PR people back in that time for the Oscar for it. Again, you know, it's like, it's a Polanski movie. So, you know, he was, you know, that period, you know, he was like a well-established director then. And
I would sooner nominate Private Benjamin than Tess.
No, I know.
Or Blue Lagoon. I don't know. That's what I'm looking at, other things that were nominated that year for other categories. I mean, I don't know. I
think. You know, I think all of them, at least, they were all very different. So that's why I liked picking this year.
Yeah, I think it's a good year.
Of The Elephant Man, I think visually, and Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. No,
great.
Good year. Thank you for picking that and giving up your time to watch and analyze that. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It was great talking about them all.
Welcome to Pro Tips for the Pros, brought to you by Floor & Decor Bailey's Crossroads. In this series, we'll explore essential advice for professional contractors to deliver outstanding renovation results. Let's dive in. Before starting any renovation project, take the time to plan meticulously. Assess the customer's needs, budget, and timeline to ensure a smooth and successful renovation process. Thank you for joining us for this pro tip on planning thorough renovations. Stay tuned for more expert advice brought to you by Floor & Decor Bailey's Crossroads.
A lot of people tolerate ordinary. Ordinary bathrooms, kitchens, entryways. Well, not on your watch. If you're a pro, you've got a new partner in town. Floor & Decor. From tile to wood to stone, Floor & Decor has more styles and job lot quantities of Schluter, Mapei, Laticrete, and other brands pros trust. Come see a whole new way to wow with Floor & Decor. Coming soon to Bailey's Crossroads.